Hey everybody, it's Professor Nelson here, and guess what? We are headed into our last week of Latin 111. Can you believe it? I mean, in 3 weeks you've come so far. You should be very proud of yourself for coming through what is usually a much longer period of time in learning Latin, and feel very good about what you've done. But we've got 1 week left to go, and before heading off into Latin 112. So stick with it here, stick with me, and let's finish off the week in good form. Remember, if you're sweating things on the grade sheet at this time, let me know and let's talk about it. And also remember that Latin 111 is graded pass-fail A. So as long as you've got above a C-, you're in the pass range. And if you're doing 94% and over, you're going to get the A for your transcript. So that takes a little bit of the pressure off in such an intense and compact amount of time. Now, heading into the last week here, we're going to build out on some of the information that we've already learned and fill in some of the gaps so that in 112 we can move off into some new territory and prepare the ground so we can read some real live Latin if you're going to stick with me into Latin 200 levels in the fall or the spring. And I hope you do, because you'll have gone through quite a bit and you'll be prepared to do some reading. And Latin literature is a wonderful thing to be able to experience in the original. Anyway, chapter 13 here, we're doing reflexive pronouns and possessives and the intensive pronoun. I'm going to move myself out of the way here and so that we can see all of the text, but don't worry, you'll know I'm here. So here we go. Okay, reflexive pronouns mean pronouns that refer back to the subject of the sentence. Reflexive means bending back, and in this case they bend back and indicate that what they refer to is the subject of the verb. In English, we use the suffix self often to be able to indicate that something's a reflexive. So we don't say, for example, usually, I see me. We say, I see myself. Or you see you. We say, you see yourself. And so on. In Latin, however, in the first and second person pronouns, the simple pronoun is what is used. So with Marcus me videt over here, is Marcus sees me. But this pronoun is unchanged if we have the sentence ego me video. It's that we in English translate it as I see myself. So in first and second person, and I have examples here going down the line, that as if the pronoun is the same as the subject, then you translate it reflexively. However, things are different in Latin for the third person reflexive pronouns, just as they were different for the third person pronouns. Namely, there is one pronoun, sui, sibi, se, that is used reflexively for third person subjects. And this particular pronoun, since it means I am referring to the third person subject, doesn't have both not both a singular and plural form. It works for both. So that over in here, this se, between Marcus se videt and Romani se videt, this se has the same spelling, but since the first refers back to a singular subject, Marcus sees himself, and the second refers back to a plural subject, the Romans see themselves. They end up being translated differently because we make that distinction in English. In other cases, for example, these still mean the same thing. So Marcellus sibi donum dat is Marcus gives herself a gift, whereas Marcella et Claudia sibi donum dat. This is the same spelling, but here we have a plural subject And so it's Marcella and Claudia give themselves a gift. The reflexive pronoun here appears in an English idiom that we use quite often, which is per se. Now, per se means through itself in Latin, and we use it to mean something that is true or a certain state by or in and of itself, just as the Romans did. Like with the pronouns, the reflexive pronoun has a possessive adjective that goes with it as well. You remember that when we did the pronouns, both the first and second person pronouns had possessive adjectives, the adjectives that mean my, your, our, or your in the plural. Well, the possessive adjective suus aum means his, her, its, or their own, namely that it's the possession of whatever the third person subject is of the sentence. This means that Latin can distinguish between pronouns in some ways that English cannot. For example, here in this sentence, Marcella librum eius amat, which means Marcella loves her book, the eius means that since it's not a reflexive, it means that it's some other person. So it's some other person's book, not Marcella's. To make a Marcella's book, we'd have to use a possessive adjective that's reflexive, because Marcella librum suum amat, where Marcella loves her own book. Here it's another her, somebody else. Here it's Marcella's own. The same thing's true down here in the next couple of sentences, where Marcus et Gaius literis patri eorum misit. Marcus and Gaius sent a letter to the father of them, or their father. However, this eorum means, since it's not a reflexive, it has to refer to somebody else other than Marcus and Gaius. So here, Marcus and Gaius sent a letter to somebody else's father. Whereas in the second, Marcella et Gaius literis patri suo misit. The suo means that it refers to the subject of the sentence, the third person subject, Marcus and Gaius. So here, Marcus and Gaius sent a letter to their own father, not to somebody else's father. In English, we use this kind of reflexive possessive adjective when sometimes somebody is referred to as sui generis. In Latin, this means of its own kind, and it comes to mean unique or special or one of a kind, something that's not found elsewhere. If somebody is called a sui generis, it just means they're a odd duck, and you won't find another one of them. The second kind of pronoun that this chapter talks about are intensives. And our intensives shine a spotlight on whatever noun they're modifying, that they highlight it in a way so that the speaker can communicate its importance or its singularity to a listener. Like with reflexives, in English, English uses the suffix self, but it means something different. So an example of an intensive would be something like, I myself said it. Now, myself is not reflexive. It's not part of a different object that reflects back on the subject. It intensifies I. In the sentence, look, I see the woman herself, or I see the very woman. The very, or herself, intensify the noun woman and highlight it. They're not reflexive. They're doing a different job. They have a different function. They're intensifying the noun. Now, the Latin intensive is ipse, ipsa, ipsum, which declines like ille, illa, illud. That is, has ius in the genitive singular, I in the dative singular, and is, for the most part, regular for all of the other forms. On the right here, you'll see that I have a variety of uses for an intensive, and some differentiation between intensives again and reflexives in Latin. Here, Claudia virum ipsum spectavit. Ipsum is an intensive that intensifies virum. So this is Claudia saw the man himself, or the very man. Whereas in the sentence, Claudia se spectavit, this is a reflexive. And here, Claudia saw herself. Now, just because in English both of these kinds of pronouns have self in them doesn't mean they can't occur in the same sentence. Although it sometimes gets kind of cumbersome handling the repetitions when they occur. So for here, like has Claudia ipsa, Claudia herself, with an intensive. Dedit pecuniam sibi, there's a reflexive, because the person to whom Claudia gives the money is herself. So in translating, it's a bit cumbersome, but this is Claudia herself, that is, nobody else, just Claudia herself, gave money to herself. So she appears to be solely responsible for giving herself money. In terms of English, we use this intensive in a couple of different idioms again that are taken from the Latin. One is the phrase ipso facto, which in Latin means by the deed itself. And in English, this means like something like by that very fact. Ipso facto, this is the case. The other is a phrase ipse dixit, which means he himself has said it. And it's something that the followers of Pythagoras often said in Greek about their founder, that something was true because Pythagoras said it. And it came to mean, as it still does, a dogmatic and unproven statement. So you can say that something is an ipse dixit and use it almost as a noun, because it just represents that kind of statement, which is only true because somebody of authority said it. All right then, here we are, chapter 13, headed for the home lap. So buckle in and let's have a good week. Post your questions, as always, up onto the forum. I'll see you in the homework forums, and look forward to the next chapter, which is coming right up.